Hello, everyone. My name is Arturo. I'm really thankful to be here in Eindhoven and in this crazy high technology partner that to me looks like a Fortnite map. So how many of you are gamers? And how many of you play games? OK, all of you play games or have played games. So when you play a game for the first time, you are called what? You are called a noob, right? And when you are a noob in a new game, in game communities, it's really hard because you make a lot of mistakes. Some people hate, and it's difficult. So today I'm a noob because this is my first conference in English. So please don't hate and help me because I'm going to make mistakes. But being a noob is good because you learn a lot of things, and otherwise you will be playing the same games all the time, and that's not fun, right? OK, so bear with me. I've been working in the gaming industry for 15 years now. I'm 50. I remember when I played my first Atari, when my father came home with the first Atari. So I'm fortunate enough to have seen the whole gaming revolution from the beginning. And I'm really fortunate and I'm very grateful to work in the gaming industry for 15 years because to me, play and gaming and play, it's really important. It's taking over cinema. It's been the main culture phenomenon in our century. And I think play is good for humanity and good for all of us. So when I listen to people say, I used to play when I was a kid, I used to play when I was a teenager, I think, OK, I'm 50, I play every single day, and I think it's good for everyone. So my goal and my mission in life is to make people play. And I do festivals and competitions for people to play professionally and also amateur. OK, so I'm going to talk today about esports. So what do you think when you think of esports? I guess by now all of you have heard about esports, and maybe you have this image, people playing games professionally. When I started, esports players were amateurs. They didn't have all this cool stuff. They were playing in very difficult situations. They had to travel all around the world with no revenues, no finance. It was very difficult, but now has become something professional. You see professional teams with trainers, with coaches, with psychologists, with nutritionists. It's becoming like a proper sport, like a professional industry. You also see this. You see some other people watching someone playing games. I remember 10 years ago, I used to go to televisions to try and sell the media rights for esports competitions. And a lot of people told me, I don't really understand how people are going to be interested in watching some other people playing games. Do you guys think the same? Is anyone thinking this? Yes? OK. So 10 years ago, it was very difficult to explain this. But at some point, I realized that the best way to explain it is if you play tennis, and you like playing tennis every day, do you enjoy watching Rafa Nadal playing tennis? Well, it's exactly the same. If I play Counter-Strike, and I play Counter-Strike with my friends every day, I really enjoy watching the best Counter-Strike player in the world playing because I learn. And it's fun to watch it, right? But it's very obvious, but 10 years ago it was very difficult for people to understand. And now you see this. And you see things like this. When I started out, this was very common in Asia, in places like Korea. But now it's common everywhere. I think this is from Cologne. It's a competition called Intel Stream Masters. So some people pay 600 euros, 1,000 euros if you go to the VIP area. And we fill stadiums all the time in many cities in Europe, in America, in Asia. So it's becoming a big deal, right? This is the cover of Sports Illustrated, and this is FaZe Clan, which is the most popular esports team in the States. So at that point, being on that magazine on the front cover was a big deal as well, because that meant that the traditional sports industry was recognizing esports as something relevant, right? And then FaZe went public, and it didn't work out. So some people started to think about hype. Okay? Another similar case, ESPN. We all know ESPN. And I think that was, I cannot see the year, I think it was 15. Again, ESPN dedicated a whole issue to esports and gaming because it was becoming the next big thing. And we had a whole League of Legends reportage in this issue. You all know League of Legends, right? Okay. But after that, and especially after COVID, we started seeing the numbers going down. And we realized, and a lot of people said, okay, the esports boom is becoming something which it wasn't as big as we thought of. And then, I don't know if you're familiar with this term, but we started calling it a sports winter. Right? So in only 10 years, from Amazon buying Twitch up to after COVID, the whole industry started to decline, apparently. So what happened? And now I'm going to share my theory, and I think what I'm going to say applies to many other industries, not only in the entertainment industry and sector, but in some other industries as well. And the goal of this talk is to try to understand how decentralization can help these things from happening, right? So we have to go to the beginning of everything, which was a LAN party. How many of you guys went to a LAN party in the 90s? Okay, cool. Right. Before the LAN parties, before we had internet, we had the real beginning of gaming with the Atari and the first arcades and the first PC gaming and all that. But then we had the LAN. The LAN, for those of you who don't know what a LAN is when we didn't have internet connection at home, or we didn't have a powerful internet connection at home, so we had to get a group of friends to a friend who has internet connection, and then create a local area network. That's why it's called LAN. And we were able to play against each other, right? A little story, I remember my father used to work in computers, and I remember going with my brother to his office, and he had a LAN, not for gaming, just for work. So there were two computers, and then my brother was there, and I was here, and I say, and I had to write hello, and my brother could read hello at the same time. That was like magic, right? So, yeah, magic. And it was maybe 35, 40 years ago. Right, so a few years after, we could play games in the LAN, okay? And then it became something bigger. And these are LAN parties. A lot of people taking the computer, taking the keyboard, taking the headset to a crazy place somewhere in the middle of nowhere to stay there for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, playing all day long, and night as well. This is DreamHack. DreamHack is based in Sweden in a place called Jönköping, and at some point had 9,000 people connected to the same LAN for, I think it was 3 days and 3 nights and 4 days. So this is where everything started and where esports started. This is another picture of the same building. This is very similar to music festivals. Remember the first music festivals in the 90s? It's the same concept. People getting together to share a passion, in this case, gaming. In the music festivals, you have also drinks. Here we have Monster and Red Bull, right? But it's very similar. And what you share in the passion is electricity and games, of course. So what we do in a LAN party, and why people come to LAN parties other than game. So it's a community-based place where we create, we participate, we play, we share, we hack, we build, we explore, we discover, and we learn. And remember this because this is important for what is coming. This is why we go to LAN parties. It's to create, it's to share. It's a community place. This is a story of esports. I'm not going to go into many details, but you can see that esports started in '72 with a tournament that was hosted in a place very similar to this one, to the High Tech Campus, but in Stanford. And it was hosted by Stewart Brand. Who knows Stewart Brand? He's the founder of Whole Earth Catalog, and he used to be in the counterculture movements in the 70s and 60s in the States. And there's a big connection between that and all the internet culture. So he created the first esports tournament. And then we can see all the steps up until the esports winter that I mentioned before. One thing that is important is that most games are mods. Mods are modifications of games that already exist. For instance, Counter-Strike is a mod, League of Legends is a mod, Dota 2 is a mod. That means that it's community created. It's not a company that creates it, but it's a group of friends who are hackers. They take a product that already exists, and they create something new. Very similar to hip-hop music, for instance. Right? Now companies are doing that, like Epic Games. Epic Games is doing that with a creative mode. So they are sharing the tools of creation with the users, so they can create user-generated content, right? But this was invented, so to say, in the 90s, in the LAN parties. Okay, so the whole of esports comes from there. But when it started to become something big, we wanted to be a serious industry. And a lot of stakeholders came to the industry to professionalize esports. And then things started to change. First one is we took the traditional sports as a model. And we became obsessed with growth, really fast growth. And we tried to turn the player from a part of the community to a spectator. So we lost the control of the narrative. And it started going from the community to the corporations, right? So that's the first step. Again, this is my personal opinion. Some other people in the industry don't think the same. That's how I see it. So the first perversion of the narrative is that we go from players to spectators. And there's a reason for that. If I want to monetize the esports with advertising, I need to turn the gamers into spectators. And if we make them watch the same content, we can sell media rights, because this is how it works in the traditional sector of sports and entertainment. The second one is that we have to stop the creation and make creators into consumers, because otherwise it's very difficult to sell advertising, because they are not going to be watching content. They are going to be building, and that's fun, but it's not really monetizable. And the second one is to turn the community into a target, so we can sell the content to the people who are paying for the business, which are the advertisers. And last one, we are going from long tail to oligopoly. You know, we all know long tail. Gaming is a long tail economy, which is form of many infinite products from different sizes and different kinds, because it caters to a great list of potential buyers. This is what Amazon is, a long tail model. But it doesn't really work like that. We prefer to group all the consumers in a few products and in a few platforms. It's the same what happened with Facebook, with Meta, for instance. We had many different social networks, and then somehow they managed to bring everyone into 2 or 3. So with games, it's very similar. We had a lot of streaming platforms, and now everyone is on Twitch or YouTube, and that's it, right? But my point is, what happens when you apply these techniques from the last century to a century which is completely new, right? Because everything that I just said is related to how the media industry and entertainment industry worked in the 90s and the 2000s, before we had the internet. With internet, everything's changed, and the consumer is used to something different. And these techniques just don't work. So if we try to apply that, because we are thinking how we can make esports similar to traditional sports, we get to this. The consumers or the community disengages. They're not interested anymore. They prefer to go back and play rather than watching League of Legends like a passive a spectator, and then we get to the esports winter. Okay? So this is the analysis, and then how we get ahead. What do we do now? So some people say, this is it, esports was hype. It's not going to fly anymore. Or some other people are saying, let's put more money. Let's put more money, let's make the companies bigger and see what happens, right? I think we have to go to the beginning. We have to look at the origins of the phenomenon, which is the LAN again. And we have to remember why LANs were so successful. And it wasn't only because we didn't have internet. Because when we had internet at home, we kept going to LAN parties. We do LAN parties. That's what we do at our company. And the LAN parties are big and people come. And they probably have better internet at home, but they keep coming to our festivals. Why? Because they like to do this. They come to do exactly this. And now our goal as an industry is how we take this into this. This is a picture of one of our festivals. How can we scale this and make it a scalable business, both online and physical, what we call digital, in a sustainable way in the new economy? How we take it to the next level. So we are thinking about what are the key elements of a LAN party, and those are security, autonomy, decentralization, participation, diversity, and ownership. We've been doing this for 25 years in the LAN parties without being aware of that. We didn't know the terms, we didn't know the theory, but we were doing it. So this is very similar to the new promise of the Web3 economy. The Web3 economy is going back to the origins of the internet culture, and in this case, the esports culture, using blockchain. So my point and our point at my company and some other companies in the industry is that Web3 and blockchain is the next step, the next logical step for the evolution of esports, which is very difficult to say because as we see in some other industries, most of the gamers are very negative about blockchain and crypto and Web3. Super negative. It's really tricky and really risky to go this way. So I'm saying this here. I'm not saying this in my festivals. I have to use a completely different narrative. So how we are doing it? And again, we are starting, right? We know that we have to do it. We are the first ones in the industry doing it. And I mean, not in the Web3 gaming industry, but in the Web2 gaming industry. We are taking the risk to go Web3. So we have started doing Web3 games competitions 2 years ago. We are using crypto as a payment method. And we are training and helping people to learn about Web3 with medium success. That's not a big interest yet. What we are starting to do is we are going to tokenize our user experience. We believe that to make this LAN community, this engagement with the users in a proper way, tokenization is a way to go. Because it allows us to do online what we are doing already offline. We are also transferring the decision-making to our community, so they become the owners of the festival as well. They decide what they want to do. They decide what they want to promote and to create. And also, with the content partners, which are publishers, such as Epic Games, or Supercell, or some other content partners, like broadcast platforms, we also want to transfer ownership of the relationship with our festival using tokenization. Some of them, again, they don't really believe in the concept, or they think they want to do it in their own way. And what we know we will take when the time is right for it is to transfer the ownership of the whole festival and the whole brand to the community. So we want to become a festival which is totally decentralized and owned by the community and all the stakeholders. And we want to do integration with publishers and commercial partners. We are already doing that with some Web3 partners. And we want to also decentralize the global expansion. For the last 15 years, I've been part of our global network of gaming festivals, and we were a traditional franchise system, which is good for some things and really bad for some others, depending on which side you are, of course, right? So we want to do our global expansion model, which is decentralized using blockchain. And we know there are a lot of challenges. These are the challenges we know of. The first one, I mentioned it before, gamers' perception. It's really difficult to share this with the gamers because they have a very negative perception. But it happened before when we, for instance, when we started having streamers and influencers and content creators, what we used to call YouTubers, that wasn't very popular in our festivals at the beginning. And now it's becoming commonplace. So we see that gamers are open to learn new things, and they probably will be the first ones doing mass adoption of blockchain in the new economy. The second one is industry adaptation. Both publishers and other festival operators and other stakeholders are really slow, and some of them don't want to take the risk, some of them don't believe in it, but I think it will take time, but it will happen. And then the technology risk. That's very difficult. We are talking to many potential partners. It reminds me of the streaming platforms back in 2010, 2011. There were many streaming platforms around, and one of them won the party. It was Twitch when it was acquired by Amazon, and all the others almost died. So I see the same with the chains, right? With the blockchain. Who are you going to work with? Who are you going to partner with? Are they going to be alive in 2 years? Is this technology going to be the right one? Do you have to choose another one? So that's difficult. We are listening to experts, but we see that it's a tricky moment to do this, right? So these are the challenges, but this is like a game for us. So we love difficult games, and we enjoy the challenges, so we are very happy to be in this position. And this is it. So any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. I think your English was great, right? First keynotes.
Yeah.
You could follow it all the time. So many thanks for that. What is your favorite esports?
Esports, StarCraft.
StarCraft?
Yes.
Okay. I was always esports. It's also a little bit more of like Formula 1 gaming and that kind of stuff. But it's StarCraft. Interesting. Yeah, that's usually when I speak about things like Metaverse and I ask people like who is actually gaming. Yeah, nobody is, but their children are, and then they start to understand how this works with the economy and like getting in-game purchases and that kind of stuff. I heard that if you look at the gaming sector, then you have to combine the turnover of the music industry and the movie industry, combine it, multiply it by 4, and then you get the turnover of the gaming industry.
And the gap is growing wider and wider every year.
But as people don't game, like I guess here in the audience, most people, they don't do any games, virtual games. They also don't understand the insane impact and size of this industry. But,
yeah, and let me tell you about that, because a lot of people now know about Roblox and Fortnite because probably your kids are playing Roblox and Fortnite. And that's why you know about it. But there are some other games, like EVE Online. Who plays EVE Online? It's a crazy game where thousands and thousands of people play every day, and there's a whole economy around it. So there are many different games like Roblox and Fortnite for adults. But you have to be a gamer to know them.
You have to, yeah. And there was this beautiful article, I think, in the Wall Street Journal about kids don't want cash anymore. They want Robux, right? The in-game virtual currency. All right, so there's many questions coming in. Many thanks for all the great questions. Let's light the candle. What about the compete or impress aspect in gaming and the community belonging elements?
The compete.
Yeah.
Well, esports is all about competition, but gaming goes beyond that. If you think about why people play, we have different profile of players. We have explorers, we have achievers, we have killers. Killers is a way to say in that if you play tennis, you have to beat the other one, you have to kill the other opponent, right? So you have to win or lose. But only a few people play to compete. Most players play to do different things.
Just to entertain themselves.
Just to become part of a community.
Yeah.
And that's very similar to the Web3 community, for instance.
Interesting. Now, the next question is about like many platforms conversed in Facebook, and then it become an irrelevant mess of collective chairs, resulting in a formation of other native platforms. And with that in mind, do you think merging would work?
Merging platforms?
Okay, what's the question?
Yeah, I get it. But sorry, that was my mistake because probably wasn't explained correctly. But what we are trying to avoid is going that way. The industry was trying to go that way because if you put all the players in 5 or 6 games, it's much easier to monetize them. But if you're a gamer, you know that you have many different platforms and infinite games. And that's why that industry is so rich and so interesting. And we have to keep it that way. My point is that we have to keep it that way. We have to keep being long tail and find ways to monetize that in a creative way without having to go to monopoly, because when we go to monopoly or oligopoly, the consumers disappear. Because they're not interested in that.
Another question, I think that's a beautiful question on convergence from gaming and blockchain technology. Why do you think it's so hard for gamers to understand tokenization, especially considering that they are builders and not compete for tokens?
Yes. Again, a story from back in the days when I started going to gaming festivals in 2010. 2009, I already was a Twitter user, right? I was using Twitter a lot. I remember going to these festivals and nobody was using Twitter. And nobody was using Facebook. And I said, wow, this is crazy because gamers are social. They're not using social networks, but they were. They were using social networks like IRC and many others, right? Yeah. They were very social, but they didn't believe in Twitter yet because it was something from outside the community. So with tokens, it's a bit of the same. We are using token-like elements in our games since forever.
You're not using any cryptocurrencies, right?
We are using some crypto in Web3 gaming, but the first examples of those have been a bit tricky, so to say, a bit scammy maybe. So the impact has been very bad for the gamers, and gamers don't really believe in that yet. But they already use elements of crypto or crypto-like in the games since forever. So they are, once the first adopters start doing it, it's going to be like super fast.
Yeah. Wow, I think that's a beautiful closure to your keynote. Arturo, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.